sit. See how easy it is? You do desired behaviors and I pay you for them. All right, so in the other video, we talked about how I consider petting a dog our way of, well, petting with a purpose. I consider petting a dog our way of paying them. When I deal with little kids, I like to say that petting our dog is our way of saying thank you. So I ask the dog to do something first, then I reward it for compliance. So, of course, now you're right here when I don't have my camera to take a cute picture of the two of you together. But what do we have now that I've got a handful of treats? I have both their attention. So if the dog nudges me and I pet the dog, like I mentioned in the other video, I'm saying you get to tell me what to do. So if the dog comes over, I'm gonna orchestrate this by throwing a treat to get them to move away, so I can kind of demonstrate putting them into something. So there you go. There we go. So now when they come over, what I do is I go like this, sit. So for a dog, if you orientate your hand over their head, a lot of times as they're with their body mechanic, they'll just put him into a sit. So I don't even say sit, I just go like this, sit. I say sit after the dog sits, and I'm not using any adjectives. I'm saying the word sit, and that is all. If my word is deck, which might be our new command word, as soon as the dog lies down, within 3 seconds, but your goal is within 1/3 of a second. You want to be delivering the treat. The same second the treat touches the lips, it should hear the command word. Now, in this case, we can even just use this as our treat. This is the reward. Now, if you notice, I'm petting the dog under its chin. When a dog is proud about what it's done, its nose is parallel to the ground or tilted upward. You might have seen one of your dogs with a sock or a special toy or a bone. They're trotting around the house with their nose in the air. They feel good about themselves. I want them to feel good about doing the things that I want them to do. Sit. So when the dog jumps, when Ivy jumps in your lap, or if Maggie comes up and scratches at you, instead of petting them, I want you to just tell them sit or down, whichever command you want. As soon as they sit, then we reach over within 3 seconds and say sit and pet them. Now, if you have had a bad day and then you want to say, can you believe I was on the interstate? That idiot was driving in the fast lane the whole time and there was nobody ahead of him and the other lanes were all blocked up and he just held up traffic for hours. It made me so mad. We want to vent to our dogs. It's healthy for us. It's a good thing for us to do. But we want to do it afterwards. So if I tell the dog, a lot of times they're like, oh, Maggie, can you sit? Can you take a seat for me? I want you to sit down. Sit was one of the last words that I used. So if we talk to our dog in that capacity or say, can you sit? The dog is keying on the word can or you, and the most important word is the last thing that they hear, which it should be the other way around. So I like to say just the command word, nothing else. So after a while, what will happen is the dogs, instead of jumping in your lap or scratching at you for attention, they're just going to kind of start sitting down in front of you and saying, look, I'm sitting, shouldn't you be paying attention to me? And the answer is yes, kind of like what I mentioned earlier. We want to pay them for what I call engaging in desired behaviors. So, and you can actually, this is something I mentioned earlier that I'll capture on camera for you, is we had some difficulty, the Guardians had some difficulty training Maggie to lie down. And their other dog also was the same way. It was like, Opson, I'm not going to lay down because you want me to do it. I'm not doing what you're not the boss of me. Well, what I do then is I wait for the dog to do it on its own. So let's say that that Ivy came over and just sat down right next to me. I didn't ask her to. Sit. Even though I didn't ask her, she's still in the end result of a sit, and I'm rewarding her at the same time she hears the command word. After a while, the dog associates, if I sit down in front of the human, they scratch me or give me treats. So instead of jumping up in their lap, that's the behavior I'm going to start engaging in. So petting with a purpose is probably the easiest thing that you can do that will have the biggest impact on your dog's life, because after a while, you won't even think about it. You can be like this. And you're having a conversation, and you're like, and then the TPS reports weren't done. And then I asked him, I was like, what happened? And so you can have a conversation with your human and have a conversation with the dog and put the dog in a sit just like I did. Now, if you use a treat, the second the treat touches lips, they should hear it at the same time. I also like to tickle under the chin, like I mentioned earlier, to make them feel good. If you do this at the same time, then eventually the treat becomes analogous. So that's nudging me for attention. The treat becomes analogous to the reward. Deck. You didn't get it because you're climbing up on me. All right, we'll have one more video where we're going to talk about how we can prevent ourselves from petting inadvertently. But we'll have to watch that one. It'll be after a couple paragraphs, and you'll find that video below.